In a comment on trading conditions, AVI's chairman said the group revenue for the quarter ended September 2011 was 10.9% higher than the same period in the prior year. This was due to improved sales volumes in most of its key units. The company noted that trading conditions are expected to be challenging, with constrained consumer demand and tough price competition in many categories.
AVI market cap 12.2 billion, price earnings 14.3, dividend yield 3.5. Ron, let's come to you first. I know you were at the AGM today. An update that I thought was fairly good. The chairman is saying tough conditions, expect challenges, etc. If these are tough numbers, give me more.
He said the same last year, Simon. This to me has got the most brilliant business model. I mean, you've got food right to the LSM 7 to 10. Then under sub-brands like tea, coffee and biscuits, you have cheaper entry brands. You might have 2 or 3 brands right at the top, in the middle and at the bottom. This LSM, if you have a look at the Woolies results, these LSM areas are firing. Hey? They're pretty resilient. They're not coming down. Margins are intact and in many cases going up, and so are volumes. Look at the apparel side there, where aspirational people are buying now at Spitz. Very, very high margins. Kirk Geithner, they're opening more and more stores there. Those margins are around about 15–16%. So the whole mix in terms of the business model, the food at the top end, and then something in your middle end, food inflation coming through, your apparel and your shoes. Then you have your fragrances, you have Coty, you have Yardley and various others there. It's just a great, great component of different brands, as you said before the show, Simon. Certainly puts famous brands a little bit in the shadow for the time being.
Paolo, AVI is making a lot of investments in cost efficiency downstream. They're going to be spending 432 million rands improving some of their legacy businesses. The question is, how long will it take for investors to start to get a return on all of these projects?
On those projects, I think you're probably looking at an 18 months period, and you'll start to see those numbers coming through. So the business per se, though, actually in its current form, you could argue is already quite efficient and well managed. So that'll bring improvements, and I'd estimate this run through is going to start from about 18 months. I think that's when you can more or less expect. Not only, you know, it's an efficient company, it's also subject to the rand, you know. If you look at I&J, for example, it's quite interesting, but the rand has weakened over the trading period. So it's estimated about a 5% depreciation in the rand means 40 million rand to I&J. And the rand over that period did about 15–20% in terms of depreciation. So I&J is also working quite well for them at the moment. The interesting company, because when they brought in Spitz, for example, if you go back, everyone's saying, well, there's a food group, now it's got shoes. You know, how did that?
I thought they were crazy. But
everyone was a bit critical of that, but yet they've turned out to have the brand in the right space, which is, as was mentioned, quite resilient actually.
Paolo, we're seeing some food inflation creeping through. We see it in CPI, we saw it in the ShopRite update they're talking about, and we've had sort of food at 0 to deflation for a while. The theory being that gives a bit of pricing power. Is that fair? Can we expect them to benefit a little from that?
Yeah, I think we can, and in fact in the announcements we've seen them benefit a little from that. If you're looking at tea, coffees, you get in the sense they are priced, you know, just like oil and copper. Of course, there's a dollar price at the back somewhere, but they have had the ability to pass it through in what is quite a tough market. But you know, it's very strong brand names. You know, it's Five Roses. I mean, it's a powerful brand name. We all drink tea, of course, and so they're able to pass it. It's quite hard, I guess, to pick it up per cup, but they certainly have showed that they're in the space with their brand name, because you need the brand name to really push it through. So that combination is quite strong.
Would you say that's a hot stock or not then, Paolo?
For me, that's my hot stock tonight.
That is your hot stock for tonight. Say no more. Ron, hot stock or not, AVI?
Absolutely boiling hot.
Absolutely boiling hot.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, Simon Brown, no pressure. Now, Paolo was mentioning the favourable exchange rates working in their favour, obviously a weaker rand, but they're not only exposed to currency movements, it's also commodity prices. Yes, they've got the hedges, they've got their forward exchange cover, but what can they do about commodity prices? Absolutely nothing.
They can do absolutely nothing about it except try and pass it on to the retailers, and I think that's what we saw in the ShopRite. It's starting to pass through, which gives these guys a bit of pricing power. Currency is nice, but can't bet on it, but you know, I was one of those folks. When they bought shoes, I'm like, come on, they're fishermen. Fishermen. Fishermen don't wear shoes, they wear gumboots.
Especially not shoes from Spitz, huh?
Or Jimmy Choos. This is a Hot Stock. These guys are brand managers and they do a better job than Kevin Hedwick and his team. This is a Hot Stock.
Unanimous hot here in studio. Let's keep the temperatures rising. Ron, what have you chosen as your stock pick? We know Paolo's gone with AVI. Could you tell us what
AVI
this is?
would be my second hot stock. If I can just shake the boat a little bit. My first one, and we're seeing the beginnings of a really nice re-rating, despite what the skeptics say, JSE Limited. Why do we like JSE Limited? It's really pumping a lot of cash. Markets go up. Volumes go up, markets go down, volumes are still there. Volume driven. In terms of new legislation, inward-looking stocks, that should help them in terms of something like BTI, which will come into the index, probably on a weighting of about 12% early next year. There are a number of other stocks there. I also believe the big bang ahead is going to be in terms of the bond exchange. They bought the bond exchange. They're not getting a massive return on it at the moment. I believe that the authorities are looking at the bond exchange in terms of getting a central order driven book, as like
to move away from the telephone
rather
trading.
away from telephone and this club which has existed in terms of bond traders for many years. As and when that happens, and it might only be phased in, you're going to see a big impact on the JSE. It's also cash generative. Once this whole revamp which they're doing in terms of bringing the line away from the LSE and the like, those extra salaries which are being paid out should be a once-off situation. We'll see the end of that at the end of this year. Special dividends being paid, as we've seen, because of high cash generation. Challenges are somebody else coming into the market, which doesn't seem all that likely currently. So yeah, it's...
You mentioned the inward listing, BTI obviously coming into the top 40. I quite like D-Waite's resources and that, but longer term, 3 to 5 years out, it's going to be positive, because right now, if you're a foreign company and you want to come listen to the JSE, Nicky Newton-King or Russell Lopes has got to say you're going to be, frankly, a second-class citizen. We should hopefully start seeing a lot more listings coming in of international companies.
Oh, well, I mean, let's look at Xstrata or Rio, companies like that. Maybe those guys would be on the board. Let's have a look at the African board as a potential. It's very slow, but 5 years hence it might well start to be a major contributor.
Well, Paolo, you chose AVI as your hot stock pick. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to make it even more hot, because it was unanimous here in studio. Perhaps we could get some of your comments on the JSE and maybe one or two more as well.
I think really from our point of view, besides the fact that it's traded well operationally, they know what they're doing in their space, given the market circumstance that we find ourselves in, quite volatile, a little bit difficult on the global side. Let's be a little local, let's be a little defensive, and that's where our comfort zone comes from.
Would you like to add a few comments on the JSE, which is
we like the JSE as well. You know, it's the only one operation in South Africa.
It's a monopoly. It's wonderful.
It's got a lovely moat around it, of course, and that's. But of course, they can't be insensitive to pricing and so forth, because they have a client base. It's all the companies, of course. But personally, besides the fact that volumes in our minds will grow and it's all beneficial, the Africa exchange, or the ability to attract African companies to list on the JSE, we think holds actually quite exciting promise. And you did mention that 5 years or so, one doesn't expect this in 6 months, it takes time.
Simon Brown, I'm guessing you're going to give JSE Limited a hot vote as well.
I like it. Nicky Newton-King, current Deputy CEO, is coming into the hot seat in the year when Russell Lopes leaves. What we're going to see there, she's taken control of the Africa board, so it's going to be driven right from the CEO's office. And I think Maureen Glimini, who was running the Africa board, was finding it tough, saying come to South Africa and be a second-class citizen. And folks were like, hold on, I thought this was post-94. I think she's going to find it a lot easier. I think it's going to be a lot better. It's a monopoly, and you've got to like that. And because of the rule about no one can hold more than 15% in an exchange, it's not that you can't set up another one, it's that you're going to need 7 parties to it, and that's just going to be infighting and the like. And as Ron says, volumes, rising or falling, as long as markets don't go sideways, that's bad for business. And we're seeing it coming through. They've got their efficiencies coming in. I think that the JSE is just going to start printing more and more cash going forward, and not necessarily more special dividends, but just a dividend yield that starts to move higher and higher. I like it.
And in a nutshell, you just cannot go wrong with a monopoly.
Never can, absolutely. That's the best moat you've got.
Well, gentlemen,
legalized one.
It's been a wonderful show. Thank you very much for joining us. Our guests today were Paolo Senatore from RMB Private Clients, as well as Ron Klipin from SA Stockbrokers. From me, Rufino Sisiane, and my co-host Simon Brown from Just One Lap. It's goodbye till next time.